We'll call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for May 2nd, 2022, held at City Hall in the Francis Huntley Cooper Council Chambers. Tonight we have four of our five. Dave Woburn is off on excuse. We have Alder Wheeler, myself, Kim Lobdell, and Michael Gronetsky, all here in council chambers. Is there anyone online for public appearances for non-agenda items?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 18th Board of Public Works meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Gronetsky. Any questions, additions, changes? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approval of the April 18th Board of Public Works minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, report from Department Head, Mr. Bill Walke.
Good evening. Happy Monday, May 2nd.
Same to you.
Not much to report from our department, really. We are busy gearing up for construction. As you know, today was the kickoff for the MM and McCoy intersection. So traffic is going to get a little squirrely there for a few days until people figure out which way to go. But we do have detours set up there for routing around the construction. You will not be able to turn left to go north off of McCoy onto MM, and you won't be able to turn left to come onto MM from McCoy, or from MM, turn off of MM onto McCoy northbound. So those will be during construction, and that will be for the duration of the construction. There's 6 stages, so barrels will be moving around a lot out there over the next few months. And if you have any concerns, or just give us a call, and we'll try to address them as needed. As I mentioned, there's construction starting up for Crescent Crossing for a subdivision out there. The chip sealing will be starting very soon, and our bridge maintenance that the contract was approved and will be starting up within the next week or two. So busy as usual.
Any questions for Bill? I have one, an older one, maybe. We'd asked if she can find time. I know you're all very busy, but we're interested in what our maintenance practices are for our wells.
Okay.
And I have another one I'm going to ask you. I'm sorry for asking, but I'd like to know when the stormwater pond it's on Seminole and the bicycle trail, the one kind of in the woods there, when that would be due for dredging.
Which one is that?
So if you're going down Seminole and you take you cross Lacey Road, and then you'd go right up the hill on the bike trail, that pond that's kind of immediately adjacent to the right.
Okay, before you get to Dolly?
Yeah, it's before you get to Dolly.
Okay.
You know, along Seminole, you have the big pond, Seminole Village, and then there's next one down, and the resident, we're curious when it would be due for dredging. He asked that question, and I said, I'd have to ask you guys, see if you have a sense, or if that's a condition-based where you check it, or if it's a time-based, maybe you can tell me that. Do we dredge on a routine basis, or is it we check every so often, see, how much is accumulated? Do you have a sense of that, Bill?
Yeah, typically we would go out every 3 to 5 years on our ponds and check for depths when they start reaching, the 20, 25-year mark, just to check, the depths of those. Usually the sediment starts occurring closest to the outlet pipe that comes into the pond, and so we'll check there for depths, but we typically have, 5 to 7 feet, and that will last us a good 25 to 30 years. But not to say that, there was a lot of construction one year and it all washed in there and it becomes.
I don't think it's been that long since that one was maybe dredged.
We can check. I can check.
Yeah, let me know.
Are they having flooding problems, or why is he curious?
Mosquitoes. Mosquitoes and the phosphorus, and it's mostly due to the woods and his proximity to Dunn's Marsh. But I told him we would check. There's a few things we think we can do around the pond to maybe help, but mosquitoes are mosquitoes where he lives, unfortunately. Thank you, Bill.
Actually, I do have one other quick question. Are we on track for tree clearing on Lacey Road?
That project is being delayed, likely for bidding until fall. So we're not going to be doing any clearing out there until fall, at
Okay.
least.
And then is everything else pushed back then as well?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
What was the driver bill for that? You just couldn't get everything?
Right away.
acquisition?
We've had some second appraisals that came in very high, and we have to figure out what we're going to do for that.
Okay. Not Payne and Dolan, is it?
One other quick question, speaking of mosquitoes, have we heard any feedback up in Burn Park as far as the work that was done up there to kind of get rid of the standing water that happens in spring every so often down around and accumulating on the farmland up there?
I have not.
Good.
But we've been without a stormwater engineer for a while, so I haven't had a chance to inspect those.
Okay.
That's on our to-do list when
All right,
we get
very
up there
good.
this spring.
All right, anything else? Thank you, Bill. Move on to our agenda items. First is 5A Resolution R 8822, approving an agreement for engineering services for Grandview Road and Vroman Road resurfacing. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler, do we have a second? Second by Lobdell or Granetsky?
Second.
Second by Granetsky, all right. So you have the engineering firm selected. The road is in poor condition. Are we basically grinding the whole road up or are we going over the top? What's the scope?
To just back up a little bit, the city applied for an STP urban local grant, and those are grants that the state wanted to do a fast turnaround on. So they're looking for projects in the city that are rural in nature, which are those roads, not a collector with a high volume of traffic, and would not involve any contentious issues like we have to grade in wetlands or we have to extend shoulders or, do something that essentially is more than picking up the pavement and putting back down new pavement. There's a couple of culvert replacements that we have out there, but we don't see those as being an issue. But the reason that we selected these two roads was because of the fast turnaround the state is asking for. We are pre-selecting the consultants that you have listed here tonight due to the fast turnaround that we have to have the documents to the state. We still have to do a full letting process or a bid process for the DOT to make sure all the documents are completed and plans done to their specifications. And we've only got about a 2-month turnaround from the time the DOT might award the projects, which is mid-May. So we would only award these contracts if the grants were awarded to us. And if not, the contracts would just go away, and we wouldn't sign them. But these are projects that the DOT wanted to get out ahead of next year for construction. As I mentioned, no contentious issues, and it's basically just a repave. So if we were to look at adding shoulders, we definitely would have to go beyond the shoulder limits, get into grading, do more planning, and they really don't want to go down that road. So that's the reason that we've got these roads selected for the city. And like I said, we would only be doing these if the grant is awarded to us.
So Bill, if I understand it correctly, the design fee for this would be paid 100% by the city. Construction costs would be 80% state, 20% city if we get the funding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I would just add, I've ridden both of those roads a fair amount, and there's very little traffic on both of those. In the utopia, in the bicycle utopia, it would be nice to have a shoulder, yeah, but the traffic volume is very light, and I've never felt unsafe riding on any of those roads except for bumps maybe, or going off the road into the shoulder. So, any other questions for Bill?
Is there any coordination we need to do with Verona at all on those? For Grandview, that kind of goes into Verona.
No, it's all within the city of Fitchburg.
I have one question on the contract. You have the city of Fitchburg contract, which is the best way to do it. But then in their proposal, they also have their standard terms and conditions. And I think when we have done contracts with you guys, when we put them, because we don't know for sure on these quick things, if you're gonna use our standard terms and conditions or yours, but that the city always says, you know, that this is subject to this agreement and like puts X's through the consultant's standard terms and conditions, because sometimes there's conflicting clauses between the two, and we want to make sure that the city of Fitchburg's agreement supersedes anything that was in there. So that would be my only comment, is to maybe put some X's through the standard terms and conditions from the consultant so that they know that they do not apply.
Right. Yeah, that was an oversight on my part, that I thought we just included the scope of the project,
Okay.
but it was the entire contract. So, yeah, we'll X those out.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Excellent attention to detail. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 8822 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 8622, authorizing acceptance of 2022 chip seal, crack seal, and pavement marking bid. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. We had two bidders on this, a very competitive bid, it looked like. I'm very familiar with the one that didn't get the bid. Scott, what are some projects they've done in the city for us?
They've done chip sealing in the past for the Fitchburg. They've also done, the Madison area. So they're familiar with the projects in the area, and it's either one or the other usually for these bids.
And had a problem with the quality of their?
No.
Are we utilizing the green paint as part of the painting process this year for intersections?
Yes, there's a couple of intersections on Lacey Road that would get the green paint where the crossings are, where the right turns cross the bike trails or the bike path, or no, the bike lanes, bike lanes.
Is that going to be a city standard moving forward?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Bill, what's the cost for putting that paint down at intersections?
Oh, I got it in the bid somewhere.
It's not cheap.
It looks like it is $4 a square foot.
I missed it.
Something like that. There's a line item in there, pavement marking 311 for $26.72.
Oh, got it. Okay, thanks.
Was I, is there a section on McCoy Road that was on here? Did I see that right?
It's possible. I've got the pavement marking plan there.
Okay.
Yeah, it does look like there was something on McCoy Road for chip sealing, line 2000 or 202.
Would we be doing that? Aren't we redoing that section? That was my only,
And crack fill, which is number 102.
okay.
Yeah, those are big nuts on here.
Is that prudent, given that we're going to be redoing that shortly? I'm not, it's your professional judgment,
Yeah, no, the section that we're doing, we coordinated with the project that's ongoing, so we're gonna end where they end, so we're not gonna overlap each other.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Any other questions on this? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 8622 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution 5 Charlie, Resolution R 2122 approving 2022 tractor purchase. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler, so it looks like we're gonna have John Deere Green, is that?
Yes, sir.
So a question I would have, I'm gonna throw it out there. I grew up on a farm, and, we had tractors for a long time. Now granted, it's a different operation, but, we had a 40-year-old tractor that still worked for our purposes. I would expect that a tractor would be the longest-lasting piece of equipment that we have in our city, mechanical equipment. Just virtue of, am I wrong? I realize every year it would be worth less in trade-in. Are you having problems with the tractor or parts,
No, not really any problems with it, but we are adding some equipment onto that, that we would like to use that we can't currently use with the one. Just trying to be more efficient with, the equipment that we have to be more versatile. So, this one, to run the equipment that we wanted to run on there, needed a little more horsepower. And, we do use, quite a bit with the PTOs and things like that. So it's a little bit rougher than just running them, up and down a field. We're running them in ditches and doing a lot of mowing and other things with them, so.
what are some of the things you're adding to it? Is it like a brush hog or?
We'd be adding, a snow blower, a pusher for the snow. And then we've got, the different mowers that we have.
Okay.
Where would that get that we couldn't currently get?
I'm sorry?
Where would that snow removal equipment get that we couldn't normally get with our other snow removing equipment?
It would be supplemental to our snow plowing operations. We would be using it for going into cul-de-sacking and into cul-de-sacs and pre-clearing some of the areas so that the plows can go in there. A lot of the trails that we have, parking lots, so it's easier to run those than the big plows. They're more maneuverable.
This was in our budgeted equipment in our CIP?
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't really understand the difference between the two bids from the same company. Or it was both John Deere, but one was from a different advertising place than the other one, or I didn't understand the difference for that. And then the one had a clause in it that prices could go up because of all the inflation and the other one didn't. Otherwise, the first one would have seemed better than the second one. So I guess, why did we get two proposals from the one place on the same kind of tractor?
It came after we were reviewing the bids that we found out that when they were purchasing direct from the manufacturer, that they could increase their prices essentially twice a year, up to 4.5% or $5,000, or was it $9,000?
$9,000, yeah, it was 9.
So potentially we could have had a couple of those because when we put the order in for the bid, it could be a year and a half, which we could see multiple increases over that time. Sourcewell, I'm not sure how exactly that works, but it's a co-op of purchasing for municipal equipment, and they're able to stabilize those increases somehow, so that if you go with them, you're locking in your price for no matter how long it takes to get the equipment. So for the additional $1,800 that we were spending on that, we could potentially save $9,000 over, in increases.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, given the uncertainty of material delivery and things, seems to make sense.
It seemed, yeah, it does, I mean, it makes sense, definitely from a financial aspect. It seemed weird the way that it was written, because it sounded like it was, you said you only had 2 bidders, but then there were three units, so.
I saw in there was something about to get to is there some sort of option, kind of like a turbocharger or something to get to the horsepower? It was listed on a couple of those.
Yeah, there was one of them that had a lower horsepower, but like you said, there was some special thing that the equipment could be ordered with that would boost the power. And we talked to some people that own the equipment and found that it really wasn't all that it was lived up to be, so.
All right, good. Thank you for performing some due diligence. Appreciate it. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 2122 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution 5 Delta, R 8722, approving agreement for engineering services for Purcell Road resurfacing. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Wheeler, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Abdel. Pretty much the same thing as the first one with Grandview and Vroman Road. We go, was it 3,800 feet from the intersection with, I can't remember, I'm on my bicycle with it all the time.
Orchard?
Yes, so 3,800 feet, is that that take us to the edge of Fitchburg?
It does.
Okay, that's what it is. Again, I ride that one fairly regularly, and it's not as you'd expect when you're out in a rural area, probably, your biggest hazard is the tractor or the combine. So, more than the
Yeah.
traffic, which is a big hazard, but.
So the prices on both projects were exactly the same?
They were, it's not to exceed, there's probably some economies of scale that's gonna come in from doing both of them at the same time.
Did they give you detailed breakdowns of like hours per task or not, or by classification or anything?
We did
Okay,
have those, yes.
all right. As long as you guys haven't reviewed them, that's good. And then the same comment on the general terms and conditions from the consultant on this one.
So just we'll know in a couple months whether the state is going to approve these?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Weeks. Oh,
Yeah, we're in May already. It seemed like months, but
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah, they're
couple
supposed
weeks.
to be meeting May 9th from the TDA presentation they had, the group to decide which projects are getting funded. And then they have to do a little bit of review. They said that you should know by about the 15th of May.
So they're looking to spend money on projects without obstacles that they know they can get done.
That's correct, yep. That's their
Both
goal.
a need and lack.
Communities have to pay 100% of the engineering fees for these, but they're quick turnarounds, and yeah, it's a good source of money. And if you've got projects that are ready to go, it's really a great deal. Were you on that TDA presentation that Craig Thompson went through all the highlights of how many projects they got submitted and dollar amounts and all that last week?
I did, but I can't remember
Oh,
the
I can't
numbers. It
remember
was
either,
like,
but-
it was like $100 million worth of projects.
Yeah.
And there's only 9 million
Oh,
available, something like that.
Yeah.
It was,
our hit rate might not be too, all right.
Yeah, I didn't think it was quite that bad, but it wasn't like that MLS projects that they had last year where it got bad. But, and that one of the advantages they said, though, is that you've already done the grant application for these, is that there's going to be 3 or more rounds of different funding coming up, and you can reuse that same grant application. Now, they cautioned you to check costs because, like, they have another one coming out now where you can apply for engineering fees also as part of the federal funding. And they said, so it's worth the community's investments to put the grant applications together. But make sure you look at the cost sheet because with inflation going up and with the supply chain things, just basically use the same application, check your cost estimates if you need to up them so that they're more realistic with the times. But, so there's about 3, I think, other iterations coming up. So you should have a pretty good opportunity to get things. But then again, in the next ones, you have the opportunity to do a little bit more complex projects too. So maybe these wouldn't be your high priority if you had a little bit more time and could do, things, or maybe they would. So it depends on what the city wants to do. But it's a good deal. They've given a lot of money to the local entities for this infrastructure package, and I think that's a good thing.
Is that your phone?
That's I'm sorry, I get it turned off. What's the, is it the Wisconsin, is it being funded by Wisconsin Wisconsin gas tax, or is this,
No, this is part of the federal infrastructure bill.
it is?
Bill. Yeah, and they appropriate so much money to each state, and then the state decides what to do with it. And the state gave the whole first grouping to the local counties and municipalities to try to get them put together. So, but it is part of the bill, the federal infrastructure package.
Thank you, Kim.
So Kim, do you know how the awards are given? You know, the criteria? I mean, if everybody's just doing, roads that are easy to replace, I mean.
They're Dan Federally and the County Highway Commissioners and the Towns Association, who is it, Brian? They have a group that meet together to do a review, and I think, they do look at your application and what you have, but they do try to spread it around the state geographically, and, urban areas, rural areas, and that type of thing. They try to make a good distribution on it, and they do have a set of criteria, but, yeah, they said they were meeting on the 9th, so next Monday, and by the time they get through everything, they thought they would have the announcements by the 15th, because it has to get approved.
Good, thanks.
We'll know shortly. All right. Very good. No, any other questions on this? Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 8722 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Last, ordinance 2022-04, an ordinance amending purchase and public contracts. I'm not going to read all of it. Fitchburg General Code of Ordinances. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lobdell. Bill, do you or Misty, who wants to speak to this? Well, there's Misty, so
We'll hope it's missing.
I hope it's Misty because. All right, Misty,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. So it seems like a fitting meeting to talk about these purchasing changes, considering you're just having a conversation about grants. So this falls under the category of whenever you get money from the feds, there's strings attached. So with the city accepting or at least applying for and hopefully getting awarded more and more federal grant money, I went through a project with the auditors to make sure that our policies were in compliance with the different requirements whenever you accept federal grants. It's called the Federal Uniform Guidance. So you'll notice in the packet, there's a redlined version of the ordinance changes. There's quite a few of them. Specifically, we created a new section for federally funded procurements because there are some things that we'll do when we have to do, but don't necessarily want to do them all the time. But with federal money, we're required to. So that section was added. There's 17 different items within there. And then the reason why it's coming to Board of Public Works is because there is some changes needed to the public construction section of the ordinances, which is what you guys monitor, make sure we're compliance with. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of those changes in particular. So the public construction statutes still apply at 25,000. You may recall that relatively recently, you implemented a responsible bidder requirement for any projects that were $1 million or above. So the changes that were made is the responsible bidder criteria will apply for the most part for federally funded procurements at 250,000. It's a little bit smaller threshold. One nuance though is there's that requirement for an apprenticeship program that's currently under our responsible bidder ordinance that can't be allowed under the federal procurement rules because one of their main theories is to have free and open competition. So that particular piece was removed for the federal procurements, but obviously still kept within the responsible bidder piece. So there's quite a few changes. I won't go through all of them unless you guys have questions.
I have a question. As I was reading through this, I was getting a little confused between the 25,000 and the 250,000. And, with that 10 in a different place to me. So can you go over that again? What is subject to 25,000 and what is subject to 250,000?
So speaking specifically about public works contracts, so the statute for public construction kicks in at 25,000. The federal rules for the different thresholds where all their additional requirements kick in is the 250,000. And those requirements are very similar to the responsible bidder ordinances that we already have on the books at $1 million. with that one exception.
So is this for procuring any public works contract? Is it for construction, or is it for professional services also, or just construction?
Both.
Both.
So the section I was talking about was specifically for public construction. That's later on in the ordinances. That's the 250,000. But anything that falls within our normal purchasing policy, which would be your professional services, your equipment, that type of thing, that's not public construction, that would fall under our normal purchasing, which has the $5,000 limit and the $25,000 limit.
Okay, so in section 10307, number 11, and I cannot get my things to come up because the file was so big, but I read it earlier and took notes. It talks about the people who put together the applications or the RFQs or the proposals or the bid documents are not eligible to do the work. Is that section applied to both professional services and construction also? Just professional services, or what is the intention there?
So that would be both. So that is a requirement whenever we have a federally funded program, but it's really a best practice for any of our projects where the people that are helping us put together those bid docs don't have an unfair competitive advantage by writing it in a way that makes it so that it fits them better. So that applies to all of our projects.
So does that include grant applications? If somebody helped you provide assistance with a grant application with cost estimates or something like that? Because I know in this federal infrastructure package, we're doing it for several communities, that WISDOT has a two-step process that if you state in there in the grant application, now that's separate from doing the PS&E documents, that if you stayed in there, if you're helping a community do the grant application, you still can be eligible to do the design of that. Now, if you do the design, you probably can't do the construction management.
Exactly, that would be my understanding. So the specific language is developer draft specifications, requirements, statement of work, or invitations to bid. So I would read that to be that grant application assistance doesn't fall.
Okay,
on that.
okay.
That's a good note, though. I'll make sure to clarify with the city attorney and that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Misty, I'm going to apologize for asking this, but would it be possible to have a flow chart for this type of thing rather than going through all the ordinances to, did we follow the right one, so that, I know it'd be no problem, you have this crystallized in your mind, but, for us reviewing or other, Bill's department, everyone, a flow chart might be helpful. I realize it'd be a lot of work to put together, but I think maybe it'd be something that would benefit us, down the road. So I'll throw that out to you. I can see you shuddering, like, I threw more on my plate, but I think there'd be some value to that.
Yeah, we have a flow chart without the federal procurement piece, but you're right, I should probably add that into the federal piece. It'd be more of an internal document, though, than worked into the ordinances.
Yes, no, I want it to be, I don't need it in the ordinance, just so easier to follow the ordinances.
From my knowledge, Misty, on section 10-439, the rejection of bids, does that refer to the city getting 3 responses to bids and telling 2 people no and 1 person yes? Is that what that is, or is that something different?
No.
Nope, so that would be if we bid out a project, the Lacey Road trees is a great example. So we bid it out, we said, no, we don't want to do that based on these bids that were submitted, we wanted to start over. Ultimately, we just have to document what that explanation was. We actually do it already, it's in our forms that we fill out. We just wanted to add it to the ordinance to be very clear that that's required.
Very good, and that was always my question is, do we have to make an update to a system to accommodate that cancellation or that rejection field, something like that?
Yeah. And so we do have to make some system changes to OnBase. It's our workflow process, but it's more than just that piece. All of those things in that section 317, those 17 items, most of which are documentation requirements, we'll have to work that into our pre-approval process, make sure they're clearly documented.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Bill. you know, last year in March or spring, early spring or whatever, the Department of Public Works put out a RFQ that you sent to many different firms, and it was just like a general statement of qualifications, and then you could use that to make selections for different types of projects depending on experience. Do the Public Works intend to do that again this year? Because it seems like there could be, you know, a substantial number of projects coming up with all this bill funding, and that might quicken the process, because you do have to go through QBS in order to qualifications-based selection and not bid on engineering services if there's any federal funds in it. So I would think that process of, you know, asking for a request for qualifications and having them on file and then making selections from them might quicken the process if you guys get in a tight bind or give you some other options, or, and I didn't know if you were still thinking of doing that or if you decided that process didn't really work very well and weren't going to continue it.
Yeah, we just haven't had the time to get to it this year, so.
Maybe if you get your new assistant, he can have some time, so, okay, so it's not off the table, it's just a
Just delayed.
casualty of extra workload at this point in time. Thank you.
Good question, Kim, thank you. Any other questions? We'll call the vote. All in favor of ordinance 2022-0-14, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Misty. Next announcements, our next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, May 16th at 5:30. Any of you can't make it, please let me know. And this time I'll.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kim.
So at our last meeting, you had said we thought we might have a meeting next Monday on the 9th because of the assessment for that, and I just wanted to make sure that there was or was not going to be a meeting next week.
Yeah, there will not be a meeting next week. We ran into a wrinkle with MMSD and our plans, had to do some redesigns, so
Okay.
we pushed it back to the
Okay,
16th.
thanks. I was not going to be able to make the 9th, but I can make the 16th, so I just wanted to be sure.
Thank you, Kim. I had forgotten all about that one. Appreciate it. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Grunetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.